What's that?
Rabbi Felder, old Rabbi Felder.
They were friends.
So that very close.
Yeah.
Very.
I mean, I'm friends with the current rabbi, but I'm not very close because it's a woman. Yeah. I can't get too close.
They have the debates in the CGN.
I mean, I'm friends with the current rabbi.
That off. The real lady?
What do you mean is a real lady?
You know, is it a hope shoe? Like a
Hope shoe?
a hope shoe. Half and half, you know, you never know. It's here, this, there, we don't know. One of those.
No. She's a normal, nice lady. They got a husband and a family. Very, very nice person. And she knows how to learn also.
How do you refer to the husband of the female rabbi?
I don't know.
Is
It's
he
a very
the-
good question. We'll have to leave that unanswered for now. Okay, so we are currently in the middle of learning about the Modim D'Rabbanan, which we learned yesterday is necessary because we need to give thanks to Hashem personally instead of doing it by proxy. We saw different versions of what Modim D'Rabbanan looks like. Some of them are very different from the type of Modim that we say, but they all have the same thing, the same theme. So we also saw that there was one Amora who came to Eretz Yisrael, and he saw them saying an inordinately long modim when he was used to saying a very short modim d'Rabbanan, and that's why he was a little bit disoriented as to why things were different over there. It's like going to a shul sometimes, or like a Nusach Sfard or a Dot Mizrach shul, and all of a sudden you think they're about to say Aleinu, and then all of a sudden they stick in another.
Very disconcerting.
Yeah, something else. So that's really what the Gemara is describing. Okay, so we're on Tesvav Amid Aleph, and we're up to the words Tane. And we're actually learning, we're switching gears again, and we're going back to our discussion about bowing. And one of the things that we saw is that you're not allowed to bow excessively. We learned when it comes to the modim that there was one opinion that you only bow down at the beginning of modim when you're listening to the Shliach Tzibor, but you don't bow down at the end when the Shliach Tzibor says Hatov Shimcha Ulachana Elahodos. Others felt you bow at the beginning and the end. And there was one opinion that we saw in interpreting the Gemara that said that you should remain prostrated the entire time when you're saying Modim D'Rabbanan. And then we also saw previously that you're not supposed to bend over too much. Bending over too much could make you look like a person with a lot of ego because you're so contrite, you're such a nobody that you're too much of a somebody.
Everyone sees me bow down.
Yeah, right. So Tani Ulvad Shaluach Yoser Midai. So you have to make sure that when you're bowing down with the Shliach Tzibor, that you shouldn't bow down completely and utterly when you say the same way you say Modim in your prayer, but you should bow down slightly. And so it's not as much of a bowing down. And that's actually how the Rambam paskins, that when you say Modim D'Rabbanan, you bow down, but you're not bowing down to the same extent that you bow down during your own personal modim. Amar Rebbe Yirmiyah, uvilcho delo yaved bahadein chardona. And also, but you also can't bow down too little, which means that there is a certain animal that even when it's prostrate, its head is still up. When you bow down, your head has to accompany the rest of your body in going in a bent over position. So don't go like, I guess maybe one of the ways of looking at it is, and it sounds like it's like a lizard who's, even when it's on all fours, it's got its head still darting about. So like when you're saying modim, don't go modim anachnu. Yeah, so just
picking out everybody else.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So That's what the Gemara is comparing this to, this animal called the chardona.
Hmm.
Ella kol atzamotai tomarna Hashem michamocha. But rather, when you bow down, it should be with your entire body, based on the pasuk in Tehillim that we've seen before. All my limbs will recite, "O God, who is like you," and the emphasis on kol atzmosai, all of my limbs, meaning that my whole body. It's not like I'm just going to bow down with a part of my body, but my whole body is going to pronounce this. Now, based on the fact that we've invoked this pasuk, we're going to learn another halacha from this pasuk, which is when you bow down when you begin the Shemona Esrei, you bow down when you say Mogen Avraham, you bow down when you say Modim, and you bow down when you say Hatov Shimcha Ulachana Elahodos. Those are the four places you bow down in your personal Shemona Esrei. But when you bow down and you say Baruch Atah Hashem, at what point do you bow down, and at what point do you become erect again? So Milsa dechanan bar ba pliga dechanan bar ba amar lechavraya. He says these words that you're supposed to bow down when you, because of kol atzmosai tomarna Hashem michamocha. He says we learn from there that it sounds like he's saying that when you're saying Hashem's name, you're supposed to be bowing down. However, that disagrees with Chanan bar Chanan bar Ba. Okay, the Chanan bar Ba Amar lechavraya Neimor lechon milsa tava dechamis l'Rav Avid. I'm going to tell you something good that I once saw Rav, the Amora Rav, do. The Amrisa kume Shmuel v'kamunashak al pumi. And I told Shmuel, his good friend, his colleague, I told Shmuel that this is what I had seen Rav do, and he kissed me on my mouth. In other words, he gave me a big kiss because he thought it was such a beautiful teaching, which is when you say Baruch Atah Shocheach, Balahaskir is Hashem Zokev. That when you are coming to bow down, you bow down with Baruch Atah, but by the time you say Hashem, you're already standing up. And this is actually codified in the Shulchan Aruch, that when you're davening Shemona Esrei, you say Baruch, you bend your knees, you bow down with Atah, and then as you're saying Hashem, you arise with your head first, and then the rest of your body coming with you, going up. And why is that you're supposed to stand up when you're saying Hashem's name? So the answer is Lahazkir. He says, Bo Lahazkir es Hashem Zokev. Shmuel Amar Ana Amaris Taima. And Shmuel says, I once said the reason for this, which is based on the pasuk of Hashem Zokev Kefufim, which is a pasuk in Tehillim, even though we say it as a bracha. God, you make straight those who are bent over. And because Hashem, we want to be able to demonstrate that it is through Hashem that I get my strength to stand tall. So we've got this sort of dual function when I'm bowing down. I want to show subservience to Hashem, so I bow down when I say a bracha to Hashem at different points in the Amidah. So at the beginning of the Amidah, and when I'm giving thanks, I have to especially humble myself, so I bow down when I'm giving thanks to Hashem in the bracha of Modim, which is the bracha of thanks. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I also want to demonstrate that it is only through Hashem that I have the pride and the sense of a capability and strength to stand tall, and therefore I stand when I'm saying Hashem. I stand back up when I say Hashem's name, and that's actually how we paskin. Amar Rebbe Ami.
I'm not sure if you care, but your camera is mislocated.
Okay, well, the camera is less important than.
Yeah, so I don't know if you care or not, but I know you do streaming stuff, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So Amar Rebbe Abam. So I'm sorry, Amar Rebbe Ami. Lo mistavra ela mipnei shemi nichas hu. He says. Rabbi Ami says, I don't agree with that. I think that you should stay bent over when you're saying Hashem's name, based on a different pasuk, and because the pasuk in Malachi says, "Mipnei Shemi," because of my name, Nichasu, he is humbled, he is lowly, okay, or Nichas, he is went down, okay. So therefore, from that pasuk, he argues that you should still be bent over when you're saying Hashem's name, not Zokev Kefufim, but Mipnei Shemi Nichasu. Amar Rabbi Avon. So Rabbi Avon defends the previous position, and he says, no, Ilu Havaksiv Bishmi Nichasu Yaus. If the pasuk in Malachi would have said, with my name he has gone down, then I would understand that argument. But Leis Ksiv Ela Mipnei Shemi Nichasu. But it doesn't say that. It says not with my name, he goes down, but in front of my name or before my name, he goes down, which implies Kodem Ad Shelo Hizkir Es Hashem Kevar Nichasu, that before he mentions my name, he has been humbled or has gone down. And that's what we do. By Ata, we're totally bent over, but as we're saying Hashem's name, we are standing tall and we bring ourselves back up.
Robert, when you shake the lulav, we do something like that. You're shaking the lulav, we also try on the same.
Yes, that's very, very interesting. When we're shaking the lulav, I always thought though that it's not an issue of standing tall when saying Hashem's name, although that could be. I always thought it was a question of kavana. That when you're saying Hashem's name, you're not supposed to be shaking because you're supposed to be thinking. When you have to have extra kavana when you mention Hashem's name, so don't be doing any physical action. That's what I always thought the reason was, but it could be that it's based on that also. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's talk about.
Are you supposed to bend when you shake the lulav?
No,
The other times?
No, you don't. Your body is not bent.
Right.
Yeah, no. So
Okay.
no, Mordechai is just suggesting that maybe
I know you
the
stop.
lulav is bent over.
Stand still, you don't do any movement.
Right, but you're not standing up more straight than you were before. You're just.
But you are doing what you are actually like.
All right.
working
Yeah,
on the
no,
movement, so whatever you,
I hear.
some people deal with it.
I just wanted to clarify that because.
It will, when you say Ata, you are Hashem, you are like totally straight. You are not
Right.
doing any movement.
No, I got.
Right. Okay. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nassim b'shem Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, Maisa be'echad sheshacha yotzer midai. So we were talking about you're not supposed to bow too much, because by bowing too much, you look like you're too much into yourself, right? Like we said before, sometimes being too humble, being overly and conspicuously humble, is a sign that you're the opposite of humble, right? So it's like I've heard this many times. What's the prayer that the Shliach Tzibur says on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah before he begins Musaf? And so sometimes, now what does it literally mean? Here am I, this poor, wretched person, standing and trying to represent my congregation. So these are words of great humility. I'm unworthy of being the Shliach Tzibur. And what happens is sometimes, the chazan who's getting paid for his great service is wearing his big white pom-pom hat, right? And the big white robe. And then he comes out and he says, Hinini, and he's instead, it doesn't actually fit, right? So you have to be careful that when you're the Shliach Tzibur, that your actions are properly reflective of your humility. So there was once a story, so the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nassim b'shem Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, Ma'aseh be'echad shechochach yoser midai. There was once a person who was bowing down excessively as the Shliach Tzibur, the He'eviro Rebbe, and Rebbe said, get out of here. And he took him down. He said, you can't be the Shliach Tzibur anymore. Yeah. And And you don't want to do that in front of Rebbe. Rebbe Ami Omar, Rebbe Yochanan have a ma'aver, and Rebbe Yochanan did the same thing. But Amarle Rebbe Chia Barba lo have a ma'aver elagar. So Rebbe Chia says that no, Rebbe Yochanan didn't eject the guy from the game, but rather just told him, hey, cut it out. Maybe he went over to him and said, stop that. But he didn't, he rebuked, yeah. Now, now we're going back to returning to a subject that we had discussed previously, which is the different formats for brachas. Remember, we talked about a long format bracha and a short format bracha. A long format bracha begins with Baruch and ends with Baruch, and a short format bracha, a one-liner, just says Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, and then you just fill in whatever that short bracha is, okay? So, but we also learned that there is something called a bracha hasamucha lechaverta, that when a bracha is adjacent to another bracha that it immediately precedes it, you can use the ending of the previous bracha to act as the opening for the following bracha. So you don't have to again say Baruch Atah Hashem at the beginning of the next bracha. And this is consistently throughout the Amida,
Yes.
where we don't start the brachas of the Amida with Baruch Atah Hashem, even though each one is a paragraph, they're long form brachos. And the reason is because it's immediately adjacent to the bracha that comes before it.
Mm. We
We also said that this is the same format as the blessings of Kriya Shema. We start with Baruch, Yotzer Or Uvarei Choshech, Oseh Shalom Uvarei Esakol. We do the bracha of Yotzer HaMa'oros, but then the very next bracha is Ahava Rabbah, which again does not start with Baruch. Why? Because Smucha Lechaverta, it's immediately adjacent to the previous bracha. We recite the Shema, and then we say, Emes v'yatzi v'nachon v'kayam v'yashar. That also does not start with a Baruch Atah Hashem. And according to Rashi, it's because it's considered immediately adjacent to the bracha before the Shema. So even though there's the text in the middle of the Shema, the 3 long paragraphs of Shema, we say that contextually it's all part of the same thing. And so therefore, even though Emes v'yatziv is not immediately adjacent to Habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava, the Shema doesn't create an interruption, and therefore Emes v'yatziv also does not start with Baruch Atah Hashem.
Is that why Modim is considered adjacent? Because that's neither. It doesn't start with Baruch Atah Adonai, nor does it end. Is it like
Modim does end with Baruch Atah Hashem, because
that's the compromise we talked about yesterday.
No, but Modim ends with Baruch Atah Hashem Hatov Shimcha Ulachana Elohodot. That is the end of the Modim bracha. We were just talking. Oh, you were talking about the Modim de Rabbanan, the one that we say together with the Shliach Tzibor. Yeah, so that's a good question. Why it's not actually considered a bracha? It's not considered to be a bracha, and that was the argument that we were seeing yesterday. Is that the Yerushalmi thought that it should end with a Baruch Atah Hashem, but the rabbis, the other rabbis of the Bavli, says Baruch Kel Hodos, that it's actually they didn't have an ending for it at all. We just
Is that a compromise?
maybe it's a compromise that we say. That's what I understand what you were talking about, Asher. So that's Baruch Kel Hodos is summoning the text from the Yerushalmi, but nonetheless not making it into a full-blown bracha. Okay. Next. So Elu brachos sheposchin bahen bebaruch. The following blessings begin with Baruch. Kol habrachos poschin bahen bebaruch. He says, so every bracha always opens up with a Baruch. That's the general rule. Vim haita bracha semucha lechaverta, but if it's a bracha that's immediately adjacent to a bracha before it, kegon kriya shema utefila, such as kriya shema and the Amida, ein poschin bahen bebaruch. You do not open up with Baruch, because you already said the ending of Baruch Atah Hashem of the previous bracha, and that is considered to be actually the way that the commentary explains it is Lefi shekfar pasach beBaruch Atah Hashem bebracha harishona. The first bracha started with Baruch Atah Hashem. V'dai bazeh gam lebrachos asmuchos la ki kula nechshavos kibracha echas le'inyan zeh. That they're all considered to be one bracha in that respect. So that's one way of understanding it. I remember learning it that, yeah, he brings in the footnote number 20, he says that the ending of the previous bracha acts as the Baruch Atah Hashem. So there's two ways of understanding it. He says, some say that it's the first bracha started with Baruch, and that acts as the start of all subsequent brachos. Others understand that it's the ending of the Baruch of the previous bracha that acts as the start of the new bracha. So there's two ways of looking at it. So now the Gemara now challenges this general rule. Hasiv Rebbe Yirmiyah, Hare Geula, what about the bracha that we say the night of the Seder? That after we finish, okay, so at the Seder, what do? We break up the Hallel into two parts. The first two paragraphs of the Hallel we say before the meal, before Shulchan Aruch, and then the majority of the Hallel we say after Birkat Hamazon. Okay, so but before we start the meal, we say our two paragraphs of Hallel, and then we say a bracha of Asher Ga'alanu, the Ga'alas Avoseinu. So it is considered to be a bracha hasmucha lechaverta, because it's considered, should it not be considered to be coming right after the opening bracha of the Hallel, which we also say at the Seder. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav etzivanu likro es hallel, and nonetheless it starts with Baruch. Now, go back into your memories. Did we say the bracha of Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav etzivanu likro es hallel at the Seder? We don't.
No, we don't.
We don't. So the Yerushalmi seems to be referring to a minhag that we don't do anymore. So if you take a look at footnote 22, a minhag haya levarech lifnei amiras ha'halel b'leil ha'seder baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu ligmor as or likro as ha'halel. Okay. And then after that bracha, haya omrim et shnei haprakim harishonim shel ha'halel, then they would say the first two paragraphs of Hallel, ula'achar mikein es birkas ha'geula, and then they would say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam asher ge'alanu, that you have redeemed us, v'ga'alas avoseinu, and you have redeemed our forefathers from Egypt, and so may you redeem us so that we have a glorious future. Kimo haminak hayom. So the bracha of Asher Ge'alanu acts as the ending for the first two paragraphs of the Hallel. Rebbe Yirmiyah Sover, I'm still reading, I'm just going to the next paragraph. So his argument is, if you've already started off by saying Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav etzivanu likro es ha'halel, then why would you need to start the end with Baruch Atah Hashem? Just like when we recite Hallel normally, we finish off the Hallel with the last paragraph, which is Yahalalucha, right? Yahalalucha, Hashem Elokeinu kol ma'asecha, all right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have the siddur in front of me, but we don't finish off the Hallel with a paragraph that starts with Baruch Atah Hashem. Why? Because it's considered to be smucha to the opening of the Hallel, where we opened up with Baruch Atah Hashem. Okay, so that's really the question that he's asking. Now, of course, it's not a question according to our minhag. Okay, but at least according to their minhag, it's a question. So turn the page. So the Gemara answers, Shadyahi, It's that's different over there, right? Demar Rabbi Yochanan Hallel im Shema'a beveis hakneses yatsa. That Rabbi Yochanan had said that at the night of the Seder, if you hear Hallel in the Beis HaKnesses, or either you heard it or you recited it yourself in the Beis HaKnesses, you've already fulfilled your obligation, and you don't have to say Hallel again in the middle of the Seder.
When they say
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Yeah,
say tonight.
yeah, like many shuls, including our shul, we have a minhag to say Hallel the night of the Seder. And therefore, as he writes in the commentary, Va'afim choser va'omer b'Seder kefi she'akol noagim, eino mevorech alav b'tchilasa. Therefore, we don't make a bracha at the beginning of Hallel, which is what we do today. That's the whole reason why we don't say a bracha at the beginning of Hallel. The kevin shebimikra kazeh birchas geula eina smucha lebracha acheres, and therefore the bracha of Asher Ge'alanu is not a bracha hasmucha lechaverta, because we didn't open up the Hallel with Baruch. Therefore velacheni poseches bebaruch, and therefore it opens up with Baruch. Now, there's a lot to unpack here,
Yes.
because we're being introduced to this concept of reciting Hallel in the Beis HaKnesses.
Mhm.
Take a look at footnote number 2 first. So,
We have this a lot of time, like, we say Havdalah and Marv, we say Kiddush and Marv, then we say it at home again. This is a constant theme that we're
Yeah.
saying it multiple
mhm.
times.
Yeah. I actually one year, many years ago, I gave a Shabbos HaGadol drasha on the reciting of Hallel in the Beis HaKnesses. When was it instituted? Why do some communities do it? And why do some communities not do it? Because when I was growing up, the shul that I went to, we never said Hallel the night of the Seder.
Is it Nusach Sfar?
No, this standard Nusach Ashkenaz shul, we never said Hallel the night of the Seder. As a matter of fact, it is more in keeping with Nusach Ashkenaz to omit saying the Hallel the night in shul the night of the Seder. It was added in, I believe, by the Gra, which is why Rabbi Tau felt that it was important to put it in.
Don't most shows don't say it today or not necessarily?
I don't know if we took a vote. I'm not sure the percentages. I don't know what the numbers are.
But it
The
gets
places that
this
don't.
repetition of saying Havdalah and saying Kiddush, and then we say it again. Now we're saying Hallel and Shul.
Well,
we're saying
I
Hallel
think-
again.
I think there is a difference, because with Kiddush and Havdalah, we say that as part of our Amida. So the rabbis instituted that part of your Amida has to have both the sanctification of the day and the ending of and the demarcation of the end of the day.
Was it always Hallel, like always that Havdalah? Do we always have Havdalah at home as well, or was always you Yosa Havdalah and Shul by Mar?
No. So Chazal were mitake in both things. They said you should say it in your Amida and you should say it al hakos afterwards.
You need it in the immediate, so you can do malacha, don't you?
I don't think that's the reason. Because that would only answer why Havdalah, but why Kiddush? You have to sanctify the day in your private Amida, because that's the Amida is the
Right.
essence of prayer,
Right.
and it's the most important part of prayer. And so you want to demarcate the Shabbos and the Yontif.
It's also why do we say Kiddush and Shul? Have Kiddush and Shul.
So that's
Well,
a different
Okay.
reason. We do that for travelers.
Yeah.
It used to be, that's a remnant of a minhag, where people would come to the shul to get a meal, because they were itinerant beggars who would come from community to community and needed food. So there would always be food served in the shul, so they would make Kiddush Friday night.
Was there another reason also that some people didn't know how to say Kiddush?
That's not the reason, because if no one is Yotzei Kiddush Friday night in shul. You can't be Yotzei because you have to have Kiddush b'makom Suda.
Right.
You have to have the meal right after the Kiddush. So that's not the reason.
Rabbi, Philip and I both grew up in a shul where we said they didn't say, right? So would that
Say
affect
which.
hello at the shul? So would that affect differently from what we're reading in the
If you didn't say halal on the shul, you have to make a bracha.
No, it wouldn't affect how you comport yourself at your Seder. Because once the rabbis, first of all, we don't know whether the Yerushalmi's reasoning for not saying a bracha at the opening of Hallel is that exclusively that's the reason. There's another reason that maybe the Babali would point out to us. But we'll talk a little bit about it.